What happens when Will Smith sits down across from Joy Behar on live TV and the conversation takes a turn no one expects? Make sure to subscribe to Final Take Files and like and comment for more talk show coverage. The studio lights are bright, the audience is already buzzing, and you can feel that slightly awkward energy that happens when a big name walks out after months of headlines. The applause is loud when Will walks onto the stage. He smiles, waves, gives a quick hug to the panel, and takes his seat. Joy is already leaning forward a bit, cards in her hand, that familiar look on her face that says she's ready to go there. Joy: "Well, Will, it's nice to have you here." Will, smiling: "It's good to be here. I appreciate you all having me." There's polite laughter. One of the co-hosts jumps in with something lighter. Co-host: "You've been busy. New projects, new interviews. You've been everywhere lately." Will nods. "Yeah, I've been working. That's what I do. I work, I reflect, I grow." The audience claps softly at that. It feels supportive. Controlled. Joy doesn't wait long. "Joy, you say reflect and grow. A lot of people would say that's because you had to." The room shifts. You can hear a few scattered murmurs from the audience. Will keeps his expression steady. "Will, I think as human beings, we're always supposed to reflect and grow. Sometimes it just happens more publicly." Joy: "Publicly is one way to put it. It was one of the most shocking live television moments we've ever seen." A couple audience members clap, others stay quiet. The co-host next to Joy glances sideways at her like, "Here we go." Will: "It was a moment I'm not proud of. I've said that. I've apologized for that." Joy: "But some people feel the apology tour has been strategic." There's a louder reaction to that, a mix of ooh and a few claps. Will leans back slightly. "Strategic how?" Joy shrugs. "Well, timing. Projects coming out. Interviews lined up. Some critics say this is about repairing a brand." Will pauses. And he doesn't smile this time. Will: "Joy, I've had a career for over 3 decades. One moment doesn't define the totality of my work, but it absolutely forced me to look at myself. That's not strategy. That's survival." Audience: applause. Joy tries to interject. "But..." Will continues, still calm. "When you mess up in front of millions of people, you don't get the luxury of processing it privately. You process it with headlines. With commentary. With strangers deciding who you are." There's louder applause now. A few people stand briefly before sitting back down. Joy tightens her lips slightly. "You're a public figure. Commentary comes with the territory." Will nods. "Absolutely. And accountability does too. I've never said otherwise." Another co-host jumps in, trying to balance it. Co-host: "Let's talk about accountability then. What did you learn?" Will looks at her, grateful for the shift. "I learned that reacting out of emotion can cost you more than you ever imagined. I learned that being human doesn't excuse hurting people." Joy cuts back in. "But some would argue it wasn't just emotion. It was ego." The audience reacts again, sharper this time. Will turns back to Joy. "You think it was ego?" Joy: "I think when you're used to being adored, when you're used to being the biggest star in the room, being joked about can feel threatening." The crowd goes half silent, half restless. Will takes a breath. "I've been joked about my entire career." Joy: "Not like that." Will: "Actually, yes. Like that. And worse." There's a small ripple of applause. Will continues, voice still controlled. "The difference that night wasn't the joke. It was where I was internally. And I've owned that." Joy leans forward. "But do you understand why some people still feel you got away with it?" That lands heavy. A few audience members clap. Others groan. Will tilts his head slightly. "Got away with it." Joy: "You're still here. Still working. Still celebrated." Will lets out a short breath through his nose, almost a laugh but not quite. "Joy, I lost projects. I lost opportunities. I lost sleep. I lost peace. There are consequences that aren't always public." The audience quiets down. He's not raising his voice, but he's not backing down either. Joy, but you didn't lose your platform. Will, should I have? That question hangs in the air. Joy hesitates for a split second. Some people think so. Will, and some people believe in redemption. The audience claps loudly at that. A few cheers break out. Joy tries to speak over it. Redemption usually comes after. Will gently raises his hand, not aggressive, just asking for space. Let me finish this part, please. The crowd reacts to that, a mix of surprise and approval. Will, redemption comes after you acknowledge what you did. After you apologize. After you make changes. I've done all of that. I'm not asking anyone to forget. I'm asking for the same grace we give literally anyone else who makes a mistake. Joy, not everyone's mistake happens on global television. Will, exactly. That response gets a loud reaction. Applause. A few, that's right, shouts from the audience. Will continues. Most people get to mess up quietly. They get to argue at home, lose their temper at work, say something they regret, and it stays in that room. Mine didn't. Joy crosses her arms lightly. But with great fame comes greater responsibility. Will nods. And I failed in that responsibility in that moment. I've never denied it. There's a brief pause. The tension is thick but controlled. One of the other hosts tries to lighten it slightly. It feels like we're in group therapy right now. The audience laughs nervously. Will smiles faintly. Sometimes that's what growth looks like. Joy isn't smiling. Joy, some critics say this recent wave of interviews feels rehearsed. Will turns fully toward her. You think I'm rehearsed right now? Joy doesn't blink. I think you're very media trained. The audience reacts again, a mix of laughter and gasps. Will nods slowly. I've been doing interviews since the early 90s. Of course I know how to sit on a couch. That gets real laughter. Will adds, but knowing how to speak clearly doesn't mean the feelings aren't real. There's a noticeable shift in the room. The audience is more on his side now. Not overwhelmingly, but noticeably. Joy glances at her cards, then back at him. So you're saying this isn't about image control? Will's voice lowers just a little. I'm saying this is about being human in public. And that's something we're all still figuring out. The audience claps again, longer this time. The camera would be cutting between faces right now, co-hosts watching closely, Joy calculating her next question, Will sitting upright but composed. And you can feel it building. Because Joy isn't done. And Will clearly isn't backing down. Joy sets her cards down and leans forward again, her tone sharpening just a bit. Joy, let's be honest, Will. You say you faced consequences. But a lot of people watching at home don't see that. They see you still booking films, still doing interviews, still sitting here. There's a low murmur in the audience. Will nods calmly. I understand that perspective. Joy, do you? Because from the outside, it looks like a temporary setback, not real accountability. A few claps break out. Will keeps his voice steady. Accountability doesn't always mean disappearing forever. Joy, sometimes it should. Audience, oh. Will leans slightly forward. So you believe one public mistake should end someone's career? Joy, depends on the mistake. And who made it? Will, and who decides that? Joy doesn't hesitate. The public. Will nods once. The public isn't one person. It's millions of opinions. Some think I should never work again. Others believe people deserve growth. Applause rises from parts of the audience. Joy crosses her arms lightly. But you benefited from being America's nice guy. That brand took a hit. Some feel it was an act. Will's jaw tightens just slightly. It wasn't an act. But it also wasn't the whole me. Joy, so which version is real? The audience gets quiet. Will answers carefully. Both. The guy who made a mistake and the guy who spent decades trying to uplift people. Human beings aren't one moment. There's solid applause for that. Joy presses. But you can see why people feel betrayed. Will nods. I do. And I don't get to argue with their feelings. That shifts the energy in the room. Joy, then why do some of your interviews sound defensive? Will looks directly at her. Because when people question your character, it's hard not to defend it. A co-host softly says, "That's fair." Joy raises an eyebrow. Or is it image control? The audience reacts again. Will exhales slowly. Joy, I've been in this business a long time. I know how to speak publicly. But that doesn't mean I'm reading from a script. Joy, you are very polished. Will gives a faint smile. Polished doesn't mean dishonest. Audience applause grows louder. Joy tries again. If someone else had done that to you, would you forgive them this quickly? Will pauses. I don't know. I'd probably be angry at first. I'm human too. That honesty softens the room. Will continues, but I hope I'd believe people can grow. Because I need people to believe that about me. Joy studies him for a moment. Joy, so you're asking for grace. Will shakes his head gently. I'm acknowledging I need it. I'm not demanding it. The audience claps, not explosive, but steady. Joy glances toward the other hosts, then back at Will. Joy, some viewers feel you haven't fully addressed the deeper issue. What was really going on that night? Will's expression grows more serious. Will, that's personal work. And I've been doing it. But I don't owe the world every detail of my healing process. A noticeable reaction from the audience, a mix of agreement and surprise. Joy responds quickly. But when your mistake was public, people feel entitled to answers. Will's voice firms slightly. Entitled to accountability. Yes. Entitled to my private growth? No. That line lands hard. Loud applause fills the studio. Even one of the co-hosts nods in agreement. Joy sits back for a second, clearly feeling the shift in the room. Joy. All right. It's brief, but it feels like a reset. The tension hasn't disappeared, it's just changed. The audience is more engaged now. Some are clearly on Will's side. Others still skeptical. Joy picks up her cards again. Joy, let's keep going. And you can feel it. This conversation isn't wrapping up anytime soon. Joy adjusts in her seat, glancing briefly at the audience before turning back to Will. Joy, let's move into something people don't always talk about. Power. You're one of the most powerful men in entertainment. Do you think power changes how situations like that are judged? The audience hums in reaction. Will nods slowly. Power absolutely changes perception. Joy. And reality. Will considers that. Sometimes. But it also magnifies mistakes. Joy. It can also protect people. There's a noticeable reaction. A few loud claps. Will doesn't flinch. You think I was protected? Joy, I think if that had been a struggling actor, we might not be sitting here talking about their comeback. The audience reacts again. This one hits. Will leans forward slightly. Or we might not be talking about them at all. That draws a mix of laughter and applause. Will continues, calm but firmer now. The reason we're still talking about it is because of visibility. Fame amplifies everything, good and bad. Joy, but fame also softens landings. Will, not emotionally. The audience quiets. Will adds, there's this assumption that because someone is successful, they don't feel consequences deeply. That's just not true. Joy, but you still have influence. That hasn't changed. Will nods. Influence comes with responsibility. And I mishandled that responsibility in a moment. Joy presses in. So how do you regain trust? Will pauses before answering. Consistency. Joy, that's vague. Will smiles slightly. It's simple. Not vague. The audience chuckles lightly. Will continues, you don't regain trust with speeches. You regain it by showing up differently over time. Joy, and how long should that take? Will, as long as it takes. That earns steady applause. Joy looks unconvinced. Some people feel the industry moved on faster than the public did. Will, the industry is made of individuals. Some moved on. Some didn't. Joy, did anyone tell you privately that they thought you should step away longer? There's a noticeable shift in the room. This feels more personal. Will nods once. Yes. Audience murmurs. Joy, and you didn't? Will answers plainly. I did step away. Joy, for a while. Will, for as long as I felt I needed to reset. Joy, or as long as it was convenient. The audience reacts sharply to that, a mix of applause and gasps. Will's expression tightens for the first time. Will, convenient isn't the word I'd use. Joy, what word would you use? Will looks directly at her. Necessary. There's strong applause from one side of the audience. Joy keeps going. Necessary for your mental health or your career. Will's voice drops slightly. Both. That answer quiets the room. Will continues, more measured now. You can't separate the two when your career is public-facing. If your mental health isn't stable, everything else suffers. A co-host nods. That's true for anyone. Joy turns toward her briefly. But most people don't have entire teams guiding their comeback. Will jumps in gently. Teams can't fix your internal work. Audience applause rises again. Will continues, a publicist can book an interview. They can't change your character. Joy folds her hands on the table. Some viewers feel like this whole situation exposed something deeper about celebrity culture, that stars operate under different rules. Will nods slowly. Sometimes they do. I won't deny that. That admission surprises the room. Joy leans forward. So you admit there are double standards? Will, yes. But not always in the direction people assume. Joy, explain that. Will, when you're famous, your mistake becomes a symbol. It's no longer just about what you did. It becomes about what people think you represent. The audience listens closely. Will continues, for some, I represented positivity. For others, I represented ego. So the reaction wasn't just about the action, it was about what they thought it meant. Joy nods slightly, but she's still probing. But you can't deny it looked like an abuse of status. Will answers immediately. It looked like a man who lost control. That line draws heavy applause. Joy, but status gave you the platform. Will, status gave me visibility. Not permission. That gets one of the louder reactions of the segment. Joy sits back again, studying him. You're very careful with your words. Will smiles faintly. Because words matter. Joy, especially now. Will nods. Especially now. There's a brief pause. The tension is no longer explosive, it's focused. Joy changes direction slightly. What about younger fans? The ones who saw that moment and felt disappointed. Will's tone softens. That part hurt the most. Audience quiets again. Will continues, if a young person saw that and thought, that's how you handle conflict, then I failed them. Joy. So what would you say to them right now? Will look straight ahead, not at Joy this time. I'd say don't handle conflict like that. Take a breath. Walk away. Protect your peace without hurting someone else. Applause builds steadily. Joy lets the applause fade before speaking again. Do you think this will follow you forever? Will answers without hesitation. Yes. That response lands heavily. Joy raises her eyebrows slightly. Forever. Will, probably. And that's okay. It's part of my story now. Audience murmurs in agreement. Will continues, but it doesn't get to be the only chapter. There's strong applause. Joy watches him closely. So you're not trying to erase it? Will shakes his head. No. I'm trying to outgrow it. The audience reacts warmly to that. Joy glances at the clock off camera, then back at Will. Joy. All right. But her tone suggests she's not finished. The atmosphere is thick now, not chaotic, but intense. The audience is divided but engaged. The other hosts are watching carefully, jumping in less and less as the exchange becomes more direct. Joy leans forward one more time. Joy, there's one more thing I want to ask you. And you can feel it. Whatever she says next is going to push this conversation to its peak. Joy leans in, her voice quieter but sharper. Joy, there are people who still feel that what happened wasn't just about losing control. They feel it reflected something about entitlement. About thinking you could act without real consequence. Do you understand why that word, entitlement, keeps coming up? The audience goes very still. Will doesn't answer immediately. He nods once, slowly. Will, I understand why people use that word. Joy, do you agree with it? Will takes a breath. No. A ripple moves through the crowd, some clapping, some reacting skeptically. Joy, so what was it, if not entitlement? Will looks directly at her. It was emotional immaturity in a high-pressure moment. That lands differently. The audience listens. Joy, you were in your 50s. A few gasps. A few claps. Will nods. Growth doesn't stop at a certain age. That line earns applause. Will continues, more grounded than defensive now. Being older doesn't mean you've mastered every trigger. It means you're responsible for them. Joy studies him carefully. So you're saying it was a trigger? Will, yes. Joy, but isn't part of being a role model managing those triggers? Will doesn't hesitate. Absolutely. And I failed at that. There's a noticeable shift in the audience. Less tension, more reflection. Joy presses once more. Then why did it take so long for that clarity? Will answers calmly. Because sometimes you don't fully understand yourself until you sit with the damage. That gets steady applause. For the first time in the segment, Joy doesn't interrupt right away. Will continues. People saw one action. I had to sit with the ripple effect. My family, my colleagues, fans, even people who never liked me. That's humbling. Joy nods slightly. Humbling is different than accountability. Will responds evenly. Humbling is what leads to accountability. The audience reacts positively to that. There's a pause. The tension that had been sharp earlier now feels resolved, not in agreement, but in understanding. One of the co-hosts finally jumps in. I think what we're seeing right now is two people who disagree on framing but agree that the moment mattered. Light laughter breaks the heaviness. Joy glances at her fellow host, then back at Will. I still think fame cushions things in ways regular people don't experience. Will nods. And I respect that perspective. Joy raises an eyebrow slightly. That's it. Will gives a small shrug. We don't have to agree for me to respect you. The audience erupts in applause. Joy smiles faintly, not fully conceding, but acknowledging the moment. Joy, well, that's something. There's light laughter. The producer's voice can faintly be heard off-camera signaling they're nearing a commercial break. Joy looks back at Will. Final question. Do you think this moment changed how you see yourself? Will answers without hesitation. Yes. Joy, how? Will, I used to see myself primarily as an entertainer. Now I see myself as a man responsible for the energy he brings into a room. The audience claps, louder now, more unified. Joy nods once. That's fair. And just like that, the sharp edge of the debate softens. The show cuts to a brief commercial break. When they return, the tone is noticeably calmer. The other hosts ask about his upcoming projects, his family, lighter topics. The audience energy is steadier. The tension from earlier lingers, but it's no longer combative, it's reflective. As the segment wraps, Joy offers a brief closing remark. Joy, we may not agree on everything, but I appreciate you coming here and answering directly. Will nods. I appreciate tough questions. The audience applauds again, sustained this time. The cameras pull back as the show signs off. But that's not where it ends. Within minutes of the episode airing, clips of the exchange start circulating online. Short videos of the sharpest moments. Should you have lost your platform? Entitled, Not Permission, Visibility. Start trending. On social media, reactions are split. Some viewers praise Will for staying composed under pressure, calling it one of his most honest interviews yet. Others side with Joy, saying she asked the questions many people still had. Comment sections fill up fast. Joy went too hard. No, she said what needed to be said. Will handled that with class. He's still dodging. Hashtags related to the segment trend for hours. Media outlets pick up the exchange by the evening, framing it as a tense but necessary conversation about accountability and redemption. Behind the scenes, sources later share that the conversation wasn't rehearsed, and that producers were prepared to cut to commercial earlier if things escalated, but they didn't need to. After the show, Will reportedly thanked the hosts backstage, including Joy. No shouting. No drama. Just a handshake and a short private exchange. Joy later mentions on another segment that she stands by her questions but respects how the conversation unfolded. And that's what made the moment stand out. It wasn't explosive yelling. It wasn't chaos. It was tension, disagreement, and two strong personalities refusing to back down, but also refusing to lose control. That's what live television looks like when it's real. Now we want to hear from you. Did Will truly silence Joy with his composure and responses? Or did Joy ask the hard questions that needed to be asked? Share your opinion in the comments and subscribe to Final Take Files for more real talk show stories.